Welcome back to today's interviews. My name is Rachel and I'm a second year Bachelor of Speech and Hearing Sciences student here at Macquarie, and I'm really excited to be interviewing Laurence today.
Hello, my name's Laurence, and I'm severely deaf, and I've been wearing a hearing aid since 1967. And I'll be very glad to give a few of my feelings and things about my hearing loss and how it's affected me.
Can you extend on your hearing experience and how that's impacted your life?
Yes, well, to the longer story is that when I was age 10, I caught meningitis. I was in hospital for some time, and they say that meningitis, one side effect is hearing loss. But I went through all my teenage years without being aware of hearing loss. And then one day at university, I walked in for the lecture, and I discovered I couldn't hear. And thinking back, it was because I had been on the rifle range the day before with no hearing protection. And since then, I've been severely deaf. As I said, I started wearing hearing aids in 1967. And that was when I first was working. And I discovered that meetings particularly were a problem. Fortunately for me, the field I was working in was computing. And particularly in those days, computers don't answer back or say anything you've got to understand. And I had a long and good career in computing, and took steps to avoid meetings. It's not necessary to be particularly social. I might have gone along to the pub with the crowd, but I couldn't hear what anybody was saying. And apart from work, which for me was reasonably successful, although I couldn't hear much. One of the things was when I was working in America, Uncle Sam wanted me to go and fight in Vietnam, and I was conscripted for the US Army. When we got to the induction centre, all lined up in a row, the doctor came along and he found a hearing aid in my ear. And the bottom line was that hearing aid saved me from going to Vietnam and fighting. And that was one of the things associated with work that was a bit of a benefit, not being able to hear. And the other thing is with the family. My wife, Lola, she supports me a lot. She goes along. If I'm going to the doctor, she comes along with me. And if I can't hear what the doctor is saying, I look at her and she repeats what the doctor has said. And that works very well for me. And she's prepared to spend the time doing that. And I don't mind whatever's said by the doctor. And she can, as long as she hears it, she remembers it too. And then going round with the family, one of my grandchildren had his 18th birthday last week, and there was a small party. I couldn't hear very much at all in this small party in the garden. No echoes or noisy environment except all the people talking. It has seriously affected me not being able to hear the grandchildren for all these years. Or my relatives, for that matter, they just aren't used to dealing with hearing lost people. And I always wear my hearing aids at home, and that gives my wife a break. She doesn't have to keep repeating what she's saying much of the time. And little things like that I've learned to adapt to. But it's taken all these years, and there's more ideas to come, especially coming here to Macquarie.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. So, do you have any tips or advice for others to improve their hearing experience?
I guess the advice for people might be what I do is to not go to pubs and clubs and churches and cinemas and busy social activities, coffee shops and restaurants, because for severe hearing loss people, it's just stressful, and I don't go. And that's my first advice: is be very careful of the venues that you go to. Another piece of advice is to go to lip reading classes, which I haven't heard much about, but they certainly, a lot of people who are deaf actually do lip read without any tuition to some extent. But there are training classes available, and you can make much more out of lip reading. Another piece of advice for people thinking about hearing aids is to always try two different hearing aids, two different models, before committing to a purchase, because one or the other might suit you quite well.
Very good tips. I had never heard of the reading classes. That's a very good tip. Thank you for sharing that. All right. What suggestions would you offer to hearing people to support those with hearing loss in improving hearing experience?
For people who are communicating with someone with hearing loss, it's important to speak clearly and slowly, and to use hand gestures, but don't cover your mouth. Because a lot of hearing loss people, whether they've had training or not, they can't hear as well if people's mouth is covered, or there's a moustache or something in the way. And another suggestion for people communicating with a hearing loss person is don't interrupt if they're talking. What happens is my brain goes into a spin because part of my brain lifts a finger saying, hey, somebody's talking. And that takes away my concentration on what I was saying. And I always miss the first 3 or 4 words of what they're saying. So the advice is if you're communicating with a hearing loss person, don't interrupt when they're talking. And another piece of advice I could offer is if you're talking to a hearing loss person, don't assume that they've taken in all that you've said, because most likely they haven't. In some situations, in a conversation, I'm looking very hard at somebody to try and read their lips a bit. They think that I'm concentrating on them and can hear every word, and they're wrong.
Yeah, I completely understand. Thank you for sharing. Key areas do you believe should be advocated for better support of individuals living with hearing loss?
The thing about hearing loss is it's a handicap. Well, there's no obvious injury or anything like that. Even if they're prompted, people don't remember to allow for the fact that they have a hearing loss. Or they might say loud and clearly the first few words, and then they go off and gabbling. And it's important to continue with the speaking clearly, and even if you can't see that I'm injured or anything like that, you can perhaps see hearing aids. The other thing where assistance could help is because the government, in my case anyway, offers no assistance for the cost of a hearing aid or the cost of having it installed and fitted. And there's a large range of assistance devices, and it takes an awful lot of time to understand anything about what they all are. I'm just starting after all these years.
Those are very, very key areas. Thank you for your insight. So, what you've shared so far is how you've adapted and made peace with your hearing journey. Could you please expand on that for those who may still be struggling to make peace with that?
Yes, you're quite right, Rachel. I have got to the stage where I've made peace with my hearing loss. And there are a few things that relates to, I still will go to some outside events like an 18th birthday party where I'm there to show the flag. And it's stressful, and that's why I don't go to all these other places. It's just 2 hours of stress trying to hear, and so that's why I don't bother with them. So I'm much more comfortable with not going to those things. At home, I can tap away on the computer and see the news and see a fair number of presentations with subtitles on the computer, like the Hearing Matters presentations. They all have subtitles. The same with watching the television at home. Loma listens to the sound. I look at the subtitles. And that's, once again, those two things keep me happy and content with the situation. And I've am busy investigating a cochlear implant, and that is always open, that I might get a new social life from that. I think it comes back to what you said. I'm at peace with the hearing loss, and I've been with a hearing loss for much longer than most people, and had time to get used to it all.
What tips would you provide for anyone who is struggling to find peace with their hearing loss?
Anyone who
is struggling to find peace with their hearing loss, like you have?
It's, you can't sort of say you can find peace by this, and this. It's something that just sort of you learn to live with.
Yes.
And there's no, of course, sort of education to do. Possibly lip reading is one of them, to make your lot a bit better. So I guess for most of my years I've been at peace because the hearing aids helped a bit, but I've got used to being not hearing people. Hearing aids, fortunately, have got better over the last 67, 23, 50 odd years, and so I can still get some reasonably hearing with this hearing aid. And this is a new hearing aid, and it's wonderful. I can hear on the phone.
Oh,
for
brilliant.
years I couldn't hear on the phone, and for this one I can hear on the phone. So there are steps like that that do help.
How many sets of hearing aids have you had over the years?
I have a big box with the ear molds from about 20 different hearing aids. Oh, you know, the aids themselves don't work anymore; they've gone. But the ear molds are sometimes useful. And this is an ear mold that came from my box of treasures.
Oh, very handy.
And that's just one of the things that helps me go along. This ear actually doesn't work much at all, and I've been in the habit of not having a hearing aid on that ear. And one of the reasons for that is that the audiologist fits a hearing aid for that ear, and it is so loud that I get tinnitus, and at night, because of the loud hearing, and it doesn't help my understanding much. So I've got to the point of not having a hearing aid on this side. But since then, people look at me and they say, "Oh, it's a hearing aid one side. The other side's okay. His hearing can't be too bad." What they don't realise, I can't hear anything on this naked ear at all. So I've changed my strategy. They can now see a hearing aid both sides. What they don't know is that this hearing aid is a dummy and it's turned right down so that it doesn't cause any tinnitus. But the people who are looking at me realise, oh, he's deaf both ears. Yeah.
Good strategy. Very good strategy. Well, thank you so much for your time, Laurence, and providing your insight for everyone watching. And we really appreciate it. And
thank you, Rachel, for being so cool and for being so careful with me and listening to my rambles.
No worries at all. Thank you so much for sharing.
Very good.